Hi, I'm Nicola.
And I'm Jay Percy.
And welcome to the Afro Animist Podcast.
We are two animists and spiritual practitioners exploring the secular through the spiritual, discussing life experiences through a sacred lens.
Each week we share our experiences and dive deep into everything in life. From philosophy, metaphysics, obeah, occultism, shamanism, culture, healing, nature, animism,
the arts, pop culture, conspiracies, psychedelics and witchcraft. Nothing is off the table in these discussions, which aim to get to the heart of what it means to be spiritual and Afro-diasporic in an increasingly sterile and authoritarian world.
We keep it real whilst exploring the biggest mysteries of our multiverse. Join us holding this space to laugh, cry, debate, build community and tear down oppressive structures.
Welcome to season 2, y'all!
Whoop.
On the 15th of October, we'll be speaking live at the Magical Women's Conference about Afro-Indigenous practice and the shadow.
We'll be doing a deep dive into shadow work and using Afro-Indigenous practice to improve the relationship with the self and external world.
Get your tickets at www.magicalwomenconference.com. Look at the show notes for more information and see you there. Welcome to the Afro Animist Podcast, you beautiful, beautiful being of the multiverse. Today you're here with me, Jay Percy, the artist.
And me, Nicola. And we have a wonderful guest for you today. So this is I did mention him last week, guys. It's my cousin, and I'm very proud to have him on the show. His name is Rory Francis. He is an actor, a writer, and a director. He trained on the BA acting program at Guildhall School of Music and Drama. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Very proud. Where he won the Michael Bryant Award and Josephine Hart Prize. Whoop, whoop, whoop. He was diagnosed with clinical depression at age 14 and with type 1 bipolar while at drama school. After graduating, he formed Bear Dance Theatre, an emerging theatre company dedicated to producing work about and from the lesser heard voices of society.
Wow, it sounds like you've just lived so much. And you're so young.
I've lived a bit. I'm not as young as I once was.
By the way, you're not allowed to say anything about age, Rory, because we all know that I'm your big, big cousin. So you need to just be careful with what you say about that.
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, you have lived, and that's why I'm I'm literally so happy to have you on. I've been bothering Rory quite a bit, making him speak to me on the phone loads, which I don't know is always fun. I know
it's been torture.
You gotta love family like that, the ones who continually pester you. Hi,
I know.
Talk to me.
I know. You're actually quite good at answering the phone, Rory, as well. I would literally never answer the phone. I don't know how. I feel like you're the only one in our family who knows how to actually answer the phone.
Yeah, it feels like I'm the only one in our family who knows how to say goodbye without having the conversation carry on for 5 minutes.
That Caribbean thing of I'm leaving now, and you don't leave for an hour and a half.
5 minutes later, I'm leaving now. 5 minutes later, I'm leaving now.
This is why you have to start saying goodbye. Exactly, you have to start saying goodbye half an hour before you mean it, or 45 minutes before you mean it.
Definitely. So, Nicola, tell us a bit about why we have brought Rory here today.
Okay, well, Rory is an actor, like I've just said in your bio. I'm really proud of him, actually. It's only us two in the family, I think, who are actors. Obviously, going to Guildhall is one of the best drama schools in the entire world. And Rory has proven over and over that he is a phenomenal actor. Also, he's a writer, director. And honestly, the reason I really wanted you on today was because, like Jay said, sounds like you've lived a life. You've lived a life. You have gone into the creative arts, which is, I think, a really difficult thing to do and commit to. And it takes a certain kind of person. And just in regards to our connection via the storytelling, I just wanted you to kind of come on here and share about yourself, share your story. Because for us right now, I feel like we really just want to have real people telling their real stories about real life. And obviously, as we do, we find the spiritual connection in all of that. Or, I mean, life is spiritual, isn't it?
Yeah.
Spiritual.
It is just that. So
And
Rory,
the creative arts is a channeling. It's a channeling medium. Like, its very essence. You are literally pulling down this creativity from your life experiences, from the great expanse, and you're, relaying that to humankind. It's such an important thing. The arts, they really are. Back to you,
100%.
Nikki.
Do you feel do you feel the same, Rory? Like, we spoke a little bit about
I
this, but like
do.
in regards to your acting, yeah.
Absolutely. I think we were talking about this the other day, but the now late actor Anthony Sher said he used to view acting as sort of like putting on fake noses and wigs and like just having a wild time and pretending to be someone other than yourself, getting away from yourself. But as he grew older and his career developed and he learned a bit more, he realized it was about sort of exposing parts of yourself that you didn't know were there, and being yourself, essentially. So I think that's sort of what I realized in a roundabout way. I mean, I became an actor initially because, well, my first role was as Captain Hook in my school play, and I went hard on this thing, man. I went hard. I was
Did you
like
go method?
studying. I did. I went home, studied the Disney film over and over again to get the accent right, to get the mannerisms. And from there, I just completely fell in love with it. And definitely when I was younger and I was having some struggles mentally, the drive was to get away from myself and get away from feeling the way I was feeling. But then as I grew older, I sort of realized that it's not about that, it's about connection. Connecting with one another in ways that you can't in the everyday, or that's challenging in the everyday. Because for me, the theatre is a spiritual practice. It's sacred, and it always has been. I'd say the thing that makes us human is the ability to sort of tell stories and communicate stories. And because that creates empathy, and empathy is ultimately what makes us, human.
Oh, totally.
So, yeah, that's my viewpoint on things.
And just drop the mic, babe.
Drop the mic.
Seriously. I feel like that's such an important way to put it. And I love that you've actually received that kind of understanding of your art as early on as you have, honestly, because for me, I always had, a similar thing where I had that kind of belief system, the same as you. The arts are super important. Storytelling for me is, you're right, one of the best ways to create empathy and connection, to understand other human beings, to understand yourself. And there's definitely been a struggle on my side to kind of always sit in that side of it and not in the side of running away from yourself, And it's a very interesting thing. I really need a new word, man. Like, seriously,
we're not replacing the word interesting. If you, listener, want to send us a new word that replaces interesting or brilliant or wonderful, like, please do. Like, where our socials are. Drop something in the comments.
Basically, I feel like the sponsor we need is like a Word of the Day toilet paper sponsor. Like, just send us some rolls. Like, all right, my darling. So, Rory, what kind of work do you create? Because obviously you're a writer and a director as well as an actor. Like, so what kind of thing are you making? What kind of thing are you putting out there? What's your drive in that way?
So I have my own theatre company, Plug Time.
Yeah.
Bear Dance, which formed in November 2019. So brilliant timing. Nothing
Oh,
bad has ever happened. We definitely didn't have any projects cancelled. Everything was
dear.
great and always will be great forever.
I love the positivity. So you
That's- you
founded
don't-
this thing in the before times and everything's
In the
gone
before times,
perfectly.
yeah.
That is great. In the before times.
In the before times. Oh my God, that is what we have to call it.
Oh,
The before times.
yeah, it is the before times.
And why did you create that? So obviously you said about wanting to put on work from like lesser heard voices. Is that kind of what you do with your company? Okay.
Absolutely. I think that's so crucial, and it's what's sort of missing in a lot of the arts at the moment. I mean, it's coming to the forefront a bit more now, but we've still got so far to go. You know, I feel like the importance of representation is vital.
Yeah.
Because to expand that empathy, to just open the door to another person's life experiences, so that maybe in the real world you can look at a person and be like, oh, I understand where you're coming from. So that's the first reason. The second reason is for those people who haven't seen themselves represented on stage, on screen, whatever. You need to feel an identification with something. Like when I grew up, there were no mixed race people on TV, or black people really. I mean, it was few and far
Lenny
between.
Henry?
Lenny Henry, the only one. Once a
Also
year
that guy
on
who
Comic
did
Relief.
the children's TV show. I can't remember. The one black presenter. Can't remember his name.
Oh, him. Oh, God. Yeah, him. That's, wow.
That's
Ryan
a blast.
Andy?
Andy Peters. That's
Yes.
all we had.
Yeah. And I think this was like especially crucial for me, like growing up where I grew up, which was in rural Sussex. Not a lot of brothers around.
Really? I never would have guessed.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fairly light skinned. I'm very light skinned, and I'm the darkest they had.
Wow.
Like it was.
Yeah.
And I faced a lot of not explicit racism, but the implicit kind, you know, where you're like,
The microaggressions.
Massive microaggressions. And when I was a teenager, I had a massive afro, because why not?
Oh yeah.
You know?
You've got it
You
flaunted.
look awesome with the afro, man.
I know, and I miss it a lot. But essentially, you know, some people are very entitled and will touch your hair without asking, or reduce you to a stereotype because of the hair you've got. And so I want representation of all kinds, really, whether that's through gender or disability or race or anything. I think we just need a more diverse set of stories. I think it's crucial.
Definitely. When we have
100%.
people on screen, what they're reflecting is these like archetypes that are within, I guess, the public psyche, and you need these archetypes to be able to help reflect a bit about your own experience. You know, they may not be exactly the same, but there's going to be that form of connection that you're going to be able to get through the archetypes. And now in the 21st century, where media is the foremost type of like programming or propaganda we're going to get through on a daily basis, it's so important that we have those archetypes in place so people aren't, you know, feeling othered, feeling left out. I think I can point to a TV when I was growing up. You know, I think I got compared to Hilary Banks all the time, and she was probably one of the few people I'd look at on television and see was like anything similar to, me, what I looked like, but quite an airhead character. It's not the best representation.
No.
It is a specific life experience that is being represented, so I guess the more of that you see, the more whole and more validated you do feel in yourself, whether you care to admit it or not, because we do get so involved with what's on television and how it relates to our lives.
100%. I mean, it's literally, that's where our main conditioning comes from, really, isn't it? What do you think about, Rory? I don't know if you've seen the new Miss Marvel on Disney.
I haven't seen it yet, no. But
you should definitely watch it.
I'm all for
I
it,
did love
obviously. It's like I've read the comics.
Is she in the comics? What is the character's race? Miss Marvel.
There are a few Miss Marvels over time, aren't there?
Yeah, this is where I expose myself as a massive comic book nerd. It's fine. We roll with it.
It's the whole family, Rory, don't worry.
Yeah. So this is based on the most recent Miss Marvel, who is Pakistani Muslim.
Okay.
Whereas the previous Miss Marvel is the current Captain Marvel.
Oh, okay. So I just found the fact that they'd made this Miss Marvel as a Pakistani character. Obviously, I haven't read the comics, so I didn't know that they'd like kind of updated the comics. But still, that's new, right? It wasn't like that. Miss Marvel was Pakistani when in the comic written in
from
1980.
the 60s.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But I feel like as a show, and why I feel like you really love it, Rory, obviously because you're a massive Marvel fan, but also because they don't only have a Pakistani girl like running the show. They also talk about, the reality of like the outfits and shit and how they aren't actually culturally appropriate for a lot of people. So she's not going to be wearing some like skin tight bustier, like zooming around with that.
Huge tits.
With huge tits, which I fucking respect, man. Like seriously, this is I feel like it's really important. They also use a lot of, is it Urdu they speak in Pakistan?
Yeah.
So you have a lot of Urdu phrases or words. Mum is always called mum in Urdu. So it's like, and I feel like, again, that's something you may see like a black person or an Asian person, but you don't really hear the words that they say a lot culturally or at home. So I really appreciate that about it. And then also it's like the main thing that it's about is the breaking off of Pakistan and
the
India.
partition. Yeah.
Which, like, honestly, I just didn't really know anything about. I felt really educated by it. Yeah. But this is the thing. This has happened, like, these apartheids have happened over and over and over again across the world. And we only really are aware of the ones that we're, allowed to be aware of. Like, we know what happened in South Africa kind of thing. But yeah, I feel like you're right, Rory, like the representation is changing. I mean, still pretty much every audition I get, it will say, we want a black person or like a Latin person. Or I did get one the other day that just said straight out, it just came out with it and just went, we are not going to hire a Caucasian for this role. And it's like...
we specifically want other.
Yeah, it used to be that. They just used to list all the others, but now they're getting brave and they're just going, no white people. We need diversity. It's, it's a bit mad how it goes on, actually, to be honest, I think, in the industry.
Yeah.
So you said to me that you were making a piece at the moment, like a multimedia piece. Is that something, are you doing that? Or?
Yeah. I'm working on a couple, actually. One of which is in the very early stages. And one of which is currently undergoing some research and development. The one about research and development is about mental health and depression and how we sort of navigate that journey. And the second is about love.
Oh
And
my gosh, I literally can't wait.
that's all I can say about that.
That's all I
It's
can
about
say
love.
about it.
Like,
Okay.
yeah. It's definitely inspired by the writings of Bell Hooks, and her model of love, which is something as like an intersectional, positive, active force, as
Okay.
opposed to, falling in love, or like love as a noun. Love is a verb. So
It's a doing
So
thing.
yeah,
is this so? So I would take it that a lot of this inspiration comes from her book All About Love, which I haven't read. So I would love you to kind of explain a bit more about that
read
aspect,
it.
because when we, I'll read it as well. Oh, but when we're talking about love like that, I think it's, again, that's like a really important thing to start to kind of acknowledge, I feel like, as an adult, because you've got all these ideas about romantic love and and that's what you feel like it is. But actually, especially, I feel like if you move into kind of studying spirituality in a different way, you begin to understand that is the underlying energy of creation of the universe, right? So it's that what you're talking about. It isn't the
Yeah,
being I don't even know what the word is, but you guys know what I mean.
Smitten with someone. It's not that sort of fluffy
in
surface
lust.
layer. Yeah, in lust. Yeah, I think we see so much in lust, in the media. So rarely do you see these stories where it's in love or understanding that, you're tapping into this like divine source of endlessness.
absolutely. I feel like love is still misunderstood, in a lot of ways, mainly because of the white imperialistic patriarchal society we live in.
How does that version of
But
society affect what we know about love, for you?
I mean, I think it affects everything, because we view love through the lens of our chosen media and of our models that we look up to. So it starts at home on a base level. It starts in the family, and there's been a lot of focus on the nuclear family recently, as opposed to the extended family or love of community. You have mummy and daddy and baby, and daddy goes to work and mummy looks after the baby, or daddy and mummy go to work but mummy looks after the baby.
Yeah, somehow he's married to this octopus lady that can do everything at once.
Yeah.
And still look pretty while she does it.
Of course.
Yes, of course.
Duh.
But it's so artificially done. Like, in nature, maybe once upon a time we had hunter-gatherers and all that shit, but in reality, we have these false patriarchal models of love and roles and gender roles and positions that we are told we have to fulfill, and that starts in the media as well. So that's another thing I want to address, is the fact that we start life being bombarded by this very specific image of what life should be, based on the imperialistic, capitalist, patriarchal society we live in. And it doesn't have to be like that. Like, what is
playing devil's advocate, living under this Eurocentric Christian moral universe, surely that's the most divine order of things. Surely that's what brings us closer to this state of heaven.
Trigger.
I'm trying to bite my tongue. No,
don't bite.
I feel like a lot of it is purely because of that Eurocentric worldview. And if we look back, and when was that introduced? 2,000 years ago. It's more recent than a lot of other things. But oh god, I read this thing recently where it said, an article I did not agree with, where it said that maybe patriarchy exists because men are just better at what they do, and it's a competency thing. And it just made me but
I mean, isn't the last 2,000 years, haven't there only been like tens of years of peace or something like that?
If that.
If fucking that. Wow. Do you not?
I don't know.
A bit of me is like, I want to read this article. Another bit of me is like, no, don't actually bring that anywhere near me.
Don't read it.
So what were your thoughts on it when you read it?
I've told you it exists. My thoughts were, this is actively harmful.
Yeah.
This is toxic. Like, this is something that people are going to read, and because you've used statistics or fancy words, they're going to be like, oh yeah, that's right. And you basically hoodwinked them. But I think it's all tied to this sense of a lack of empathy or lovelessness in the world. Because I feel like if you actually did the Christian thing of love thy neighbor, you'd put yourself in their shoes and you'd understand their perspective and where they're coming from, as opposed to projecting your own views of society onto them.
Totally.
Yeah, 1,000%. Can you run for MP, please?
I wouldn't want to lose my soul.
Oh yeah, that's true. You do have to sell your soul to do that job. No, you're completely right, babe. I totally agree with you. I really want to ask you, like, in regards to this, like, about your mental health journey, like, and kind of what's brought you to this place. I feel like, okay, so for me, guys, let me just put this out there to our darling listeners. Rory is 7 years younger than me. And actually, as an adult, I haven't had like many conversations on this level with you. So this is like literally blowing my mind at the level of
self-awareness.
Just at how much you've thought. Yeah, and self-awareness. I feel really like, you know, to be the first man that we've actually had on the podcast as well, it's just really, really, really important what you're talking about and kind of what your drives are. So I'd love to kind of ask you, if you're okay with it, about like your mental health journey and what that's been like for you, how that's like affected your choices in regards to what you do now. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've always sort of been a depressed kid, you know, always thought a bit too deeply, well, what people consider a bit too deeply, as opposed to what is actually too deeply. But yeah, and I think a lot of the time during my youth, I was lonely. And I think what exacerbated this loneliness was the fact that I never felt like I measured up or that I was enough. Not manly enough, not black enough, not white enough. but essentially abnormal.
Yeah.
Which, as I grew up, got exacerbated when it tipped over into genuine mental illness. But I suppose I'm trying to think what the question is. I've completely lost my train of thought.
Oh no, just follow whatever thought train you're on, because I was loving it. And basically just saying, like, how was your journey with your mental health? Like, just tell us a bit about it, and also like how that's affected what you do now, like your choices and what you do now, what kind of work you create.
I think it seeps into everything I do. Not just on the surface level of I'm making work about mental health.
Yeah.
But also in my reasoning behind things, because essentially I don't want anyone to feel as alone as I did when I was a kid. And the ways in which you can feel alone are through lack of representation, through lack of accurate representation. So if you don't see a model of what you could be in a positive way, you're essentially unmoored, you're lost. And I feel very strongly about not letting people feel unduly lost. To some extent, to being lost is can be a positive thing. You know, because when you're lost, you realize how artificial a lot of these roles we play are. So I used to get really
fake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to get really wound up about who am I? You know, that big old question. Why aren't I myself around certain people? And then eventually I realized that, you know, all of these aspects of myself that I'm showing are still part of me. I don't suddenly stop being myself. I don't leave my body. I don't dissociate most of the time. And just cease to be Rory. Like, I'm still me. And you know, it helped, like, looking into Jungian psychology and stuff about the mask and the persona and the shadow and the self, and also just looking into stories and how they're constructed, like the monomyth, the fool's journey, the hero's journey, and also tarot, because tarot's very interesting.
Just hold that thought for 1 second. Did my cousin just tell me that he's into tarot, and I didn't know?
Yeah.
Do you know I bought Auntie Shernet? So he's at my auntie's house right now. I bought Auntie Shernet a tarot deck about a month ago. I don't think she's opened it yet. You go and take it.
Yeah, I know.
He's already opened it.
No.
Hey, do you read?
I haven't. It's just something I'm, like, interested in, but not something I've followed through on as of yet. Although, you know, the space is there too.
Yeah, the space is there.
But also, like, when it comes to my blackness, which, as I touched on before, is like, it's complicated because of where I grew up and who I associated with traditionally. I always felt a bit of a block there.
Okay.
In what way?
And what really...
In what way did you feel a block?
I suppose, again, I just didn't really feel connected to that part of me, which is, and it is a part of me. And I'm partly really ashamed to say it was only quite recently that I became conscious of that. And it was, unfortunately, the video of the killing of George Floyd that brought that to a head. And then just everything sort of came into focus. And I do wonder why it took me seeing that video to come to consciousness. But I realized, like, the microaggressions throughout my life, the sense of loneliness, was all tied into a lack of acceptance over the many different sides of me, including blackness. So I'm making a conscious effort at the moment to delve into it a bit more, which is why I've been listening to your lovely podcast. I've been reading a lot of literature and just connecting with my family and my roots in a really profound way. Yeah.
You know, you say why did it take me that long to be able to kind of understand or accept those aspects of me? Why did that video of George Floyd? I mean, babe, if I'm fully honest, that video for me as well brought it into another perspective for me. And obviously we've had quite a different upbringing in the sense of you were brought up in the middle of like the whitest part of the country and I was brought up in Peckham in London. Do you know what I mean? Still received those the microaggressions or the not so microaggression. Still received racism. Also received racism from the Black community a lot. Actually, maybe in London, the more overt racism I received was from Black people, and the microaggressions were from the institution of the white people, you know. And I feel like when you're mixed race and like you're saying, it's like the representation isn't there, even in the space of being mixed race, being something that is different from being Black and different from being white, or being just one part of one of those communities, because you're something different. So almost everybody will look at you as something different. Everyone will look at you as something is missing, or maybe there's too much, or, you know, that's definitely an experience that I know I've lived. I feel like, Jay, you've lived the same. And when the George Floyd video happened, it almost kind of gave me permission to kind of go, no. I'm part of this community. Like, and you're right. It kind of, there's something that happened in the world with his passing that created such a big, massive conversation. I think it was a mix of everything, you know, because it is not the first Black man in America that's happened to, by far. So I think it's the mix of pandemic and that happening. Everyone at home only being able to be with themselves for the first time in their entire lives, you know, all of a sudden created this massive conversation. So I totally hear you. And I actually really respect you for really saying that and being honest with it, because I think it can be quite scary, like when you're mixed race. I don't know. I find it hard to sometimes be really honest and sit in an identification of my race, because I've had so much from different places being told that I'm none of those things, you know. It's such an... Okay, I'm going to stop saying important. Someone else speak.
I do think it's important because I think people refuse to acknowledge multiplicity, which is a very loaded statement. But I think part of the...
But true.
Yeah. I think part of the I'm trying to remember, imperialist, capitalist, patriarchal society we live in.
Patriarchal society.
Is that we like to put things in boxes and narrow things. When in reality, we need to widen our perspectives and acknowledge that, you know, there are all these energies within us. So, like, what we call masculine and what we call feminine, as opposed to what is actually masculine and feminine, because who fucking knows? Or what we call blackness and what we call whiteness, or what we call mental illness and what we call mental health. We contain multitudes. Like, there's so much happening in our own little worlds that we're just not aware of, because we've been conditioned to close ourselves off and look inward and be self-obsessed. Whereas I think another thing that empathy would do, or empathy does, is just widen that perspective and make you realize, you know, there's more going on than I'm aware.
Yeah. Exactly that. I mean, with your I really love that you've just pulled that up about mental health or mental illness. Now, this is going to be maybe a bit of a controversial section of this podcast, because I do feel like there are other ways to kind of look at these mental illnesses that we have, or these mental health issues that we have. Even, the way that the words that we use to describe those issues. So mental illness, even mental health, the word mental in our society, what does that make you think? It doesn't just make you think about the mind, which is what it just means. It makes you think someone's mental. That's how we use that word, so even having that, I feel like, creates a dissociation from the reality of what the actual thing is. I also feel like within our society, like you're saying, everything needs to fit into a box. We don't fit into boxes. It's just literally, that's the problem in the world right now. Everyone trying to squeeze themselves into boxes, or even create new boxes to fit into. You're right. It's about the widening of perspective. And with our, the state of like our mental health system and our ideas about it, I always feel, as somebody who's was diagnosed also with depression at 13, depression and generalized anxiety. Okay, you're a fucked up person, you're 13, now just go off into the world and try and figure it out, is kind of how that almost felt to me. But I've received this label. So now from that age, everywhere I go, I am the depressed, anxious person. And it's very difficult to move out of that label. What I have thought about a lot in my life has been like the potential superpower of the mental health issues that you have, So sometimes, and we spoke about in our last episode was all about rest. Sometimes I look at my depression and I look at when it started, and I'm sure, Rory, that there are certain events that happened, like when you were younger, that would have maybe sparked off little bits of those changes, enforced that loneliness, like you're saying. And I can see that actually maybe my depression isn't a mental health issue. It's actually a safety net, or it's a place where I, how can I say it? If society was a bit different, then when I got depressed, I may actually just be allowed to rest and be in that space and be supported from that space, not be told that I'm sick, not be told that I shouldn't feel that way, like whatever, just be maybe able to accept that rest space that I'm in. Because when I'm in my midst of, I call it dropping off the cliff. I don't know if you feel the same way. Like, my depression works, it's like I'm walking along a precipice every day of my life, and then one day I fall off the cliff and I'm in the hole. And when I'm in that hole, it is a void. It is an absolute void. Now, that void can be massively comforting or massively troubling, and I feel like that depends almost kind of what I was kind of experiencing in the times before I dropped off the cliff and fell into the hole, so if I'm able to not be down on myself about the fact that I have mental health issues or whatever, then actually when I go into those phases, I can sometimes work with them in a different way. I feel like there's an element of society saying this is like the normalized brainwave, right? So here's all the medicine to make that normalized brainwave. How can there be like a standard when there's 8 billion people in the world? Like, how can there be a standard? There's 8 billion unique potentials. So how could there ever even be like a chemical balance that's completely right for everybody to kind of have? It's just
on that note, there's a phrase that's doing my head in right now, and it's being used. I think it's being used well-meanedly. Is that a word? But neurodivergent or neurodiverse. Not neurodivergent, neurodiverse, which to me doesn't make much sense, because by the very nature of everyone living different experiences, eating different foods, being in their respective environments, having their respective communities around them, they will have developed neural pathways in a way that is individualistic to them, which by very nature makes people neurodiverse, does it not?
Exactly.
Which it's very bizarre to me that we're not accepting neurodiversity first. We're not taking that approach, so it's not a neurodiverse first approach. It's a normal person and then a neurodiverse person. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense with what I understand the world to be, how I understand neuroscience to work, how I understand the brain to work. It's nonsensical.
Surely we need neurodiversity for evolution, progression, survival. Like, for me, neurodiversity must have been a thing that evolved in order for us to continue to survive, maybe at a time when it was harder to survive. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you're right. But I tell you what as well, pretty much every single person I talk to now is like, oh yeah, I'm neurodiverse. I understand. That phrase makes sense. It makes sense for fucking everybody. Like, the amount of people I know now who are now saying that, like, yeah, that's like, that explains it. Like, you know, it's interesting. I feel like almost everyone that I talk to in my age group at the moment is saying, maybe I'm a little bit on the spectrum. I have ADHD, I have anxiety, I have depression. I'm like, yeah, boy, list those superpowers and let's see how to work with them in a different way. What do you think?
I think the big thing is,
Rory, because I know
I think it's about this perception we have of fighting something as well. So, like, I'm fighting my mental illness. I'm fighting my neurodivergencies. Like, it's not a healthy way to look at it, because you're fighting parts of yourself. And in a fight, you tend to get hurt.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a very good point.
It's very true.
Within the spiritual community, actually, I was thinking about this so much earlier. No, you go, sorry.
No, you go. You go.
Oh, okay, fine. What was I going to say? Jeez.
Within the spiritual community.
In the spiritual community, no, I've forgotten. Sorry.
This idea of fighting.
Oh, yeah, okay, all right, got it, thanks. So I feel like when I kind of took my deep dive into the spiritual community, all of a sudden it was like healing is the thing to do, right? We've got to heal. Like, to the extent where, you know, like 15 years after fucking starting that shit, I'm still healing, because that's where my mindset has been. Like, and I really was thinking about this. I realized it was like, I look around and everyone is just on this healing journey. It's like, when are we going to start to actually live life? Like, in the craziest way, shit happens. We are diverse. We have experiences, and 100% you need to be able to support yourself, but we don't always have to think of ourselves as sick or in need of healing or in need of getting better than what we are. I feel like, I don't know, Rory, I feel like that kind of, for me, that's kind of a bit of what I heard when you were speaking. Like,
yeah, because I think what it is that we only heal because society tells us we're sick.
Yeah.
Whereas if we thought of, like, oh no, it's just something I have to manage on a day-to-day basis, like you do with everything else,
yeah,
then they wouldn't be able to sell you stuff.
Exactly that.
It's a lot harder to sell stuff to manage something than it is to completely like overhaul and fix the broken bones of your mind, that kind of thing.
It's harder to sell stuff to people who don't think they're fucking broken and need all this other shit to make them better. You know, that's it, isn't it? You're right. It's like this bottom level conditioning of basically you're born. It comes from Christians. Sorry, Christians. But like you're born so you are sin. You're born so you're sin. Yeah. Okay, now you've got to spend the next several decades working out this sin that you have literally no idea how or when you created.
Acquired it.
So it's like, so you're right. This like the message of society, of our Western society, the culture that we live in right now, is that you are wrong, you are bad, you are sick, you are fucked up, you are a sinner.
Whereas, especially with bipolar type 1, which is which has psychotic symptoms, which is what I have. You know, all it means is that I have a brain that works in a slightly different way. In times pre-colonialism, you know, would it have been viewed as an anomaly or something to be punished? Or would it be viewed as something to be cherished?
Exactly.
Probably be the town shaman, I reckon.
No, that's what I was going to say. Medicine man right here. Like, have you read about this, Rory, in other cultures? Because there is a shaman who passed away, actually, I think in the last couple of years, Malidoma Soam, who has spoken a lot about mental illness in this regard. And he said, so he is, I will send you his book actually, Rory, you'd love it. He says that, so I remember reading an article, basically, he grew up in, I think, maybe Benin.
Dagara.
Yes, there you go. And he had the unique experience of basically being initiated in his village as a medicine man, as a shaman, but also going to university and becoming a doctor in Western medicine. So, and his whole thing is that he was bridging the gap. So he tells a story about going to New York and going to a psychiatric hospital, and there was a young boy there, I think a teenage boy, and he had schizophrenia. And this shaman, Dr. Shaman, says that basically the worst place for somebody who has mental health issues is institution. He said, you do not put all these people together in the same space. It's terrible for your energy and really hinders any kind of potential healing in that way. But also that when he walked into that hospital, he just saw shamans, psychics, mediums. Because actually in his culture, if somebody had grown up and started seeing and talking to things that weren't there, then they would say that they would feel like they were speaking to spirit, and that they actually had a gift that needed to be honed and supported in a very specific way because they are that open. Now, I have my feelings about this. I don't want to say that's what I believe it is every single time. I think that's quite a dangerous thing to say because our society doesn't support it. But like you're saying, like imagine if you grew up in a society that didn't look at things that were happening with you as wrong, you're right, and they looked at it and gone, okay, well, how are we going to actually support this thing, this person in the way that they are exactly? And maybe it's because in our society we've ripped out the unknown. We've ripped it out. Like, we don't have space for it in that way. Like, it has to be proven by science in a very specific way. There's no understanding really about the potential of what happens after life. And I feel like mental health issues cannot really be fully understood if you think that this is it. If this is it, cut and dry, we live in a capitalist society, there's nothing in any way that is beyond us. I'm not talking about God, I'm just even talking about like an understanding of like the air that you breathe. Yeah, anyway, I'm literally going off on some next tangent. It's not my interview, is it?
And by the way, here's a pill.
There's a pit in here, the fucking pill.
Mm.
Do you feel like, as obviously as a young man, as a mixed race or a black man, when it comes to your mental health journey, like how has that been? And wrong word probably say supported, but like how have you found that? Have you because you talk a lot about loneliness, and I totally understand that for you and for us. But there's also a space where I feel like, well, we spoke about this again, like for women now, we create these spaces actually quite a lot where we have circles, we have these gatherings, and we have these spaces where we come to like be and witness each other. And for me, that's been one of the most useful thing, kind of with a group of peers, just being able to witness in non-judgment. And I wonder, because not many of the men that I know have any kind of support like that. So I just wonder, like, from your point of view, what would be helpful and what would be useful as a young man right now with going through this?
Well, this question reminds me of a play I saw quite recently, which was called For Black Boys Who Have Considered Suicide When the Hue Gets Too Heavy, by a wonderful company called Nouveau Riche. And essentially the conceit of it is that it's sort of like a group therapy session between 6 young black men. And I think to really tackle or form that sort of sphere of open communication, you have to address what the problem is. So, and I think that's tied into our very rooted images, especially in the black community, of masculinity and what it means to be a man. So because men don't talk about their feelings is the stereotype, right?
Yeah.
If you do, you're weak.
Yeah, exactly. But honestly, there was such joy in watching this play and seeing these young black men talk about experiences openly and acknowledging the fact that, you know, like, their experiences are different, without judgment and with joy. It was a really wonderful piece and really inspirational for me. Not inspirational in that hashtag inspirational, but in terms of like actual, like, this could
Genuinely
change.
uplifting.
Yeah, this could actually change things.
Life-changing work. Wow.
Yeah.
Is it still on, that play?
No, sadly, but you can
Oh
buy
my God,
it.
babe, take me to see it.
It'll come back.
Oh,
It's got to come back.
All right. Well, send me a link. maybe we should link the link to buy that play in the show notes. I think that'd be really great, because I don't know. I need to read it, and I feel like there's such a thing here, and there's a part of me that feels massively unqualified to talk about it, to be honest, because of how I identify. But there's definitely, it feels like there's massive spaces missing that could be filled with some honest witnessing, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we've been chatting for ages, man. But like, tell us about your play night. No, it's good. Tell us about your night that's coming up. So you mentioned that you have a short play night.
Yes.
Coming up.
Yes.
In October. Okay.
We have a short play night called Let's Try This Again, coming to Canada Water Theatre on the 29th of October.
Okay.
Amazing.
Yeah. And it features
Is it called
about
Let's Try
6
This Again?
plays.
Oh.
It's called Let's Try This Again because...
Or...
No, we did an open call. It's called Let's Try This Again because we tried before and then lockdown happened.
Yeah.
So
It's
let's
a
try
great
this
name,
again, and hopefully it will work.
Yeah.
But no,
Fingers crossed.
fingers crossed. It features 6 short plays from a exciting range of upcoming artists, and it should be great fun. So please keep an eye on our socials for that. Is this
Will
the part
do,
where I
and
plug my socials?
That's your space to tell us what your socials are.
Yeah, plug yourself.
Yes, plug them,
where can we
plug them away.
find
Yeah.
you? How do we contact you?
Great. Well, my personal socials are on Twitter and Instagram as @a Rory Francis, and Bear Dance's socials are @Bear Dance Theatre on Instagram and Facebook, and @BearDanceTC on Twitter. And we also have a website, www.beardance.co.uk.
Awesome.
Amazing.
So, guys, I'm gonna put links to all of that stuff in the show notes, and and please, reach out to us, reach out to Rory. Definitely gonna come down to Candid Water and see the plays. That I think I'm very excited about that. There's a lot happening in October. It seems to be the month of stuff. And thank you so much for coming on talking to us today, Rory. Really
and
enlightening.
sharing your honest experience about mental health and from a male perspective. I think this is gonna help so many different people who are gonna have their experience expanded from you sharing. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
So I guess that's us for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening. I'm
Thank you for
Nicola.
being here, and I'm Jay Percy, and thank you for listening to the Afro Animist Podcast.
We will see you next week.
Thank you, beautiful being of the multiverse, for joining us on the Afro Animist Podcast.
If you want to get stuck into the conversation or have a question about anything we speak about here, join our mailing list and find us on our socials.
On TikTok and Instagram, find us at the Afro Animist Podcast.
On Twitter, you can find us at Afro Animist. If you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Music, you can also find this talk on YouTube. Just search for us and we will pop up as if by magic.
If you're loving what we're talking about here, share, like, and subscribe. And remember to leave us a thumbs up or 5-star rating on your favourite platform.